Raise your hand nice and high if you have not been here before. Nice, a lot of first timers, cool. Well, Crypto Mondays, if you guys don't know, is a global meetup group. So there's about 37 different cities and 14 different countries. Miami is the fourth largest, only behind Tel Aviv, LA, and New York, which they dominate us in sheer size. So Miami has a great blockchain community. Here at the Blockchain Center, we are a co-working office and event space focused on bringing together the crypto community. Now tonight, because we have Moe, and Moe is so special and he brings out the best and just represents why Miami is a huge hub. We have a special for you guys tonight. So typically, since we are a co-working space, typically we charge $250 a month for our co-working members. Tonight only though, you can get it for $100. So talk to me, talk to Maria, Scott over there, and Enrique right here. And we can get you in on this special rate for $100 for the first month. If you're interested in learning more, go to blockchaincenter.com. And it's blockchaincenter.com. Everything is spelled properly. So a couple housekeeping items. First things first, after a lot of you guys know, we go across the street to Lost Boy. So Lost Boy is a new bar on Flagler Street. We are part of Miami's redevelopment plan to really build up the city. And they gave us half-off drinks for all of our people. So half-off drinks, guys. If you're a member, you can feel free to stick around here after the event. And without further ado, we are going to introduce our speaker for tonight. His name is Moe. And he is the founder of the North American Bitcoin Conference, which is the longest running Bitcoin conference in the history of Bitcoin, held down the street in here in Miami. So come on up, Moe.
Hello. I got this. We need a thing for the beer. But
1, 2, 3. Also, this is being live streamed right now on Bitcoin Center Miami YouTube. So if you have anybody that wants to join remotely, feel free to have them join. And Moe is blowing kisses now.
hello, everybody. So generally, the way these things work is I ramble on stage for like 15 minutes, and people lose attention, and then, we go across the street to drink. First of all, thank you so much to the Blockchain Center Miami is fantastic. I've been to the one in New York, and this place is doing the same thing that we've always wanted to do. And I don't want to jump the gun here by my whole speech. I got a whole thing set up, and I spent a lot of time on it. So, but I guess what I'm trying to do in this conversation more is talk to you guys a bit more about the community and what brings us together. I'll tell you a little bit about the North American Bitcoin Conference. I'm going to just. I think I'm fucking up the slides a little bit. I'm pressing the button that goes like this. Did I fuck it up? What do I need to point at? Maybe I point at Enrique. All right, this is the only slide. I just want to be on stage with Puppy. Zuma and I can just do a panel. Yeah. Control F5. Hey, don't show them the whole fucking presentation. Oh, it works? Hey-o, presentation time. All right. Nobody claps now, hey? There we go. Maybe, I don't like when people do this with people in an audience, but if you can raise your hand if you've ever been to the North American Bitcoin Conference. It's a lot of people. It started in a bit of a strange way. I had moved to Austria from Barcelona, or I moved to the Netherlands from Austria, and I was completely broke, and I heard about Bitcoin. And this was in 2012. I heard about Bitcoin. Somebody told me about it. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. Let me read about it a little bit. I go on the Bitcoin Talk forum, and I read it's quite interesting new technology. And there wasn't a lot out there. There were no events about it. And I told my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, I heard about this thing called Bitcoin. I would love to make an event about Bitcoin, but I have 20 euro. That's all I had. And I was like a deadbeat boyfriend, seriously. And I said, listen, I really, if you can, hi live viewers, I'm sorry. So I just said, listen, I really want to make an event about this. I don't have any money. Could I please borrow, I don't know, 2,000 euro to try to make an event about Bitcoin for the community? And I posted on the Bitcoin Talk forum in early 2013 saying, I heard about Bitcoin. I think it's really interesting. I think the industry can support an event like this. Bitcoin was the only thing we had at the time. We didn't have any other cryptocurrencies, but I posted, could anybody help me maybe with making an event like this? And what happened was, very interestingly, we made an event which kind of worked, and we learned a lot from this bad event. I remember Josh, who's here, who is our creative director, him and I were in a co-working space trying to figure out how big a stage is by just like walking across and using measuring tape and being like, I think this is 3 meters, so that'll be our stage. And we pulled it off. And in early or middle of 2013, we made our first event in Amsterdam. The first event in Bitcoin, really. We had the exhibitors in the same hall as the speakers, which turned out to be a bad idea. But it was a solid event. And maybe 150, 200 people came to the event. And what was interesting about that event specifically is that there wasn't an event to connect people to each other, really. What people had was forums and they had usernames. But at this event, they sort of said, oh, you're Enrique. I know your username. You must be Miami Do Bitcoin 2019 or something. I can't believe I'm meeting you, because they were all talking online. Now, finally, they had a place to connect and collaborate with each other. And having events like the conferences, like events like this, is sort of the best way to put faces to names and connect with people and talk to each other and grow the industry. I think that this conference, I don't want to sound egotistical, but it has done something in creating a community a little bigger and a little brighter, and has made Bitcoin succeed in just whatever way we can. Anyway, so we made this event in Amsterdam. 3 months later, we launched Ethereum in Miami. So it was a real steep curve. I mean, in 2013 at the Amsterdam event, Vitalik was on stage talking about selling magazines online, and he made an app where you can buy magazines with Bitcoin. And then somebody asked him about quantum computing, and then 30 minutes he rambled about quantum computing. But 3 months later, he launched Ethereum on stage in Miami, and that was a cool event. We did it at the Miami Beach Convention Center, which is now being renewed, and back then it was a little rougher. But that was a cool event. But we did it all with one goal, and that goal has always been to bring people together and create a little bit more warmth in the industry. And over the years, that's been tricky because there's been a lot of politics and drama between which blockchain you support and which thing you think is better than the other. But in a sense, community is the only thing keeping us together, that we're all working towards very much the same goals of building a better, more optimistic future. And that's what we've done. This is some of the events that we've done over the past, and we have been busy around the world trying to spread the message, a lot like what blockchain centers are doing, a lot like the lab has been doing for a long time with Drew and who does Drew work with? Doug. Bitstop. These guys have been pushing the community and like get people together or hang out together. And what you can learn by just having a drink with somebody is so powerful. It doesn't matter whether or not you agree, if you think the sharding is better than something else, or you don't think scalability works. It just matters that you are aligned in that blockchain is important, probably in the future of the world. So we've been doing this for a while. Some news people have covered us, and we have been attended and sponsored by really important companies that have weight. And again, I started off with the comedy club in Amsterdam with 200 people. That's being generous. I think it was like 150 people. But it has turned into something where now, I mean, you can't read the news without seeing a major organization that's been implementing blockchain technology or trying to do something for better or for worse, however they're doing it, but they're doing it. And we've been doing it together. This is Nick, who is the chairman of the Blockchain Center. I don't know, he's a loud guy. But But he was just recently knighted or something. Like 2 days ago, he was knighted for something. Yeah, good for him, man. You know? At some point, after years and years of proselytizing and being an ambassador for crypto, he's doing it. And this is the community has a voice now, and it has power. I mean, this is not me making this conference. It's my team, and a shout out to Amy, Lindsay, Amanda, and Josh, and Pauline. There's a whole organization that makes these things happen, and in everybody's company. It's a teamwork and collaboration which is going to get us further and further. You're not at your own island. You need to do these things with other people. I wait for you to take a picture before I do the next. Yeah? I'm not even on it. Oh, you took with me in it? Let me know. I'll pose next time. So what's interesting is that when we do an event, we get a lot of information about people and who's coming and what they're doing. And so Josh has put together this slide about sort of the progression over time. We left out 2013 because the numbers are not good, but over the years it has transformed. And I'll get to that in a second. This is an interesting slide, but what has happened over the years has been really telling about the industry, and it has been interesting. In 2013, when we were making events, Bitcoin was the only thing around. There wasn't Ethereum. There was Omnicoin and Mastercoin at the time, but there wasn't anything else than Bitcoin, which was going to be the political change and stop government's abuse of power or something. That political sentiment shifted a lot in 2014, where the Bitcoin price rose. And over time, things shift, and the conversation changes from being political to being more money. And in 2018, late 2017, early 2018, when the price went crazy, the conversation was not about political beliefs. It was like, get rich quick. Things change a lot. And 2017, ICOs and Binance coming into, like CZ was working at blockchain.com or blockchain.info at the time, being a software engineer, and then he makes Binance, which is this monster company that rivals Fortune 500 companies in the innovation, in the way they run the company, and how important they are to an industry to have a solid structure and framework and infrastructure thing. They've got so many employees working day in, day out to further consolidate and support the industry. And for that, these are things that are so important to have good on-ramps, and you'll see it. I told you I was going to ramble for 15 minutes, so I think I'm doing that successfully. Higher because I can hear myself. Higher is better? All right. In the back, can you hear me? Yep. Perfect. But what is so crazy is, like, you can walk down the street here and you see the monorail or the tram. It's just this Gemini, regulated Bitcoin cryptocurrency something. That's wild. I mean, in 2014, 2015, if you saw somebody on TV, there was one episode of The Big Bang Theory where they mentioned Bitcoin in 2015, and that was shared everywhere because they're talking about Bitcoin on TV. And now you walk down the street, you see Bitcoin everywhere. Places are accepting Bitcoin. People are selling this, regulated exchanges. eToro is a monster company. You can trade Bitcoin on it. Anyways, so this is sort of like a quick recap of where we have been. And I'm going to try to talk about where I think, just having seen a bit, where we might go in the future, 2019, 2020, how things are looking. Security tokens remain an important part of the industry. In a lot of ways, security tokens are simple, but efficient ways of democratizing access to products that you couldn't get otherwise. So you can go on the New York Stock Exchange, the Dow Jones, and you can buy some stocks, and you can go on any international exchange and you can buy shares in something. But access to different companies or different projects that are not big enough to be listed on an exchange or have access to some sort of innovative product that is only accessible through security tokens, which is, if you have a REIT, which is like a conglomerate of real estate properties, you could access that if it's bigger than a certain amount because you can buy shares in the company. But in a smaller extent, if you want to have the opportunity of buying shares in the blockchain center, because tonight only they have $100 for a month, and you think this is a great value and you think this is a great place, at some point you'll be able to buy a share in the blockchain center. But you can't do that on the stock exchange. You need to do that. To do it at some point? But that's exactly why, because you can have the opportunity to do that, but you can't do it. You can't list publicly. You have to do it in a certain way, but that represents so much more opportunity, because you can see opportunities everywhere and sort of offer a way for people to access that, and that's what's amazing. So security tokens, I think, will remain a very important part of the future because it can offer valuable products to everybody. Stable coins, I mean, they come a dime a dozen, and there's a lot of them, and we'll see what happens with this. It seems to be a very regulated thing. When you start touching national currencies, you get into a lot of problems, but it is a big part of the future, and let's see what happens with it. None of this is comments or opinions. It's just sort of what I think is happening. It would be interesting if the New York Stock Exchange launched a security token platform. I mean, NASDAQ did in a certain way. T0 is doing some things like that. But when you give more and more people access to the products that blockchain enables, you're going to see a very different future. And none of us know what it looks like, but it will be different in some way. Libra is this Facebook product, which is, that's the right response. It is what is going to happen with that. And what we saw is that every major partnership that they had with another organization has fallen through because Facebook is big. It's really, really big. And if they start making their own currencies, they could rival most countries. I mean, besides for America and Europe and Canada, like, or westernized countries.
I was just going to say recently, actually, two of the companies just disclosed that the SEC had basically come to them and pressured them and said, look, you can go forward with being part of Libra.
Yeah.
If you do, your company as a whole is going to come under undue scrutiny, and you have to be aware of this.
Yeah.
They're literally walking through the door and threatening.
Because it's such a big company that if you want to start screwing with national currency,
it actually has the power.
they have the power to fuck with you back. I'm sorry for the language. We're in front of a Zuma. But all right. So as it relates to regulation, if you've had a startup or have friends that run startups in blockchain, you understand that much of the capital raised can go into just legal fees and lawyers who, because it's such an unknown industry, it's not possible to really launch without pioneering the law for it. You have to go to court and you have to get some case law. So hopefully, at some point, some of the regulation will be machine readable and people can launch products more easily and not have to spend all their money on legal fees. Job migration, I think and hope will happen, where people will decide to leave companies like Wells Fargo or other banks which have their own internal blockchain innovation center, but then move to to start doing something more interesting. And I think that's true. When you get bitten by the bug of crypto, it's harder to work for big companies and then not do something more powerful with it. Because what we have here, and everybody that's here, is already accessing just like mainlining interesting ideas. But I don't know if this is optimistic or pessimistic, but blockchain in the background is going to be a major part of the future where, I mean, you've heard this before, that it just operates in the background and you don't know you're using blockchain, but when you open up your iPhone and the camera's storing a picture, it's storing it on the blockchain because it's a little bit easier to access and share information. If that happens, it's going to be a lot different than newer companies and startups doing sort of revolutionary stuff, because blockchain in the background sort of means that only software providers will succeed. It's only the people that can create a suite of tools for companies that need to use a blockchain, and then they'll be bigger. It's almost like Oracle offering their services. If they offer blockchain solutions, then we'll just all be using Oracle's blockchain, and that'll be the end of it. So it could be pessimistic, it could be optimistic that everybody's using the blockchain in some way. And to a certain extent, and this is, I think Vitalik said this 2-3 years ago, he said that we don't know what's going to come out because the technology continuously evolves. There's launches on every blockchain weekly of new, interesting, important developments that say, we have a totally revolutionary way of viewing the blockchain, and this can help with something. But what's interesting about that is when more and more industries start touching blockchain, you can see more and more new developments. We're producing an event about agriculture over the next couple days, because agriculture is a huge industry, very innovative, and they're just starting to understand what blockchain means to that industry. But if you talk about literally any industry, whatever industry your parents might have worked in or your cousins might have worked in, These things can be touched by blockchain, and as more and more people get the light switch goes on, I mean, this industry becomes bigger, brighter, and more interactive. And this interactivity is what spawns new developments and makes the world a better place. I don't want to sound like I went to Burning Man because I didn't, but it just makes the world it just makes the world a better place when people are more in line with each other, aligned. This is a picture from 2018, which was a lot of fun. That is the last slide. Is from 20? If anybody wants to ask a question, I'm happy to take questions. We got a question.
I got a question. So, been rumored that the Chinese government's going to be coming out with crypto in the next imminently.
Sure.
They've been working on it for 5 years, and so the technology is basically gone from like independent companies, skipped over corporations, and now potentially could go right to central bank technology. I'm having trouble understanding what the implications of that would be for people like us who are kind of in the private, not private blockchain, but the independent blockchains. How will we compete against, and how do we think the landscape will change in an environment where central banks are releasing blockchains?
So I think in a lot of ways, governments and central banks will look at people like, in your words, independent blockchainers, for example, as a threat, which means you guys are developing your own currency, stablecoins, other products. That's a threat to what we do day in, day out. So we're going to try to capture as much market share as fast as possible. And that'll slow down the adoption for a while. But what I'm optimistic about is that generally when these things happen, they happen with very bureaucratic countries or very bureaucratic organizations. And what that means is they can't innovate fast enough. What happens over here in this room is you have a beer with somebody, and they say something interesting, and you say, oh, I know something about that, and then you do it together because you don't have to ask for permission from anybody else. You could just go spend a couple days, develop a new product. You can't do that in bureaucratic central banks that are launching their own blockchains. What it'll do is it'll slow down the adoption for more innovative, revolutionary stuff, but the revolutionary stuff will always happen because people by themselves are more powerful than companies by themselves.
I would also say, too, that China kind of already has its own digital currency, right? It's literally already digital. If the world's money supply is 60 trillion and 50 trillion of that is on ledgers, a lot electronic anyways, then fiat currencies are already digital.
I was just going to say another comment on that. Any state-run cryptocurrency is going to run into the innate issues that cryptocurrency is trying to bring itself away from, because Bitcoin isn't going to go down because X, Y, or Z country had a political thing that went awry, whereas if you have a China-based coin, it's going to be, it's going to go through the same fluctuations as a traditional fiat currency would. So the speed and application is there, but the decentralized factor is completely lost, which in many ways kind of devalues the purpose of doing it.
Yeah.
I agree. It'll probably not good for Bitcoin. There's always going to be a market for it.
It's always good for Bitcoin.
There's going to be a market for any non-governmental backed currency.
Yeah.
Having a borderless currency that isn't singularly affected by a single country's politics is, I think, a huge.
I think Bitcoin user is always not affected.
Well, what's your opinion on decentralized exchanges in comparison to centralized exchanges? Do you think decentralized exchanges will combat what you guys just finished saying?
Exchanges are good when there's liquidity.
Okay, so
I mean, if there's more of a decentralized exchange that can pull liquidity across decentralized exchanges, which is not always good for decentralized exchanges because decentralized exchanges make money. You need a lot of liquidity because if you're going to trade actual value and a lot, sort of at volume, you really need liquidity or you'll mess up the order books. I mean, what you're sure is Ellie token. I mean, it's a very good exchange, but trading millions on it on some unknown currency, I mean, the order book is not deep enough to handle the. Even Binance, which is the sort of the biggest one, cannot handle sort of things, whereas liquidity on the New York Stock Exchange you could sell what you want and be able to have that filled at an appropriate.
Well, I get that. I mean, where I was coming from with that is that since now China and everyone's really trying to compete towards decentralized
Yeah.
exchanges, there's a very big possibility that it may even shut down central exchanges and may even outban or ban Bitcoin.
I mean, the thing is that when governments view cryptocurrency as a threat, they try to close down the on-ramps to it, and that has to do with close down how you get KYC'd, how you join an exchange, which countries can join, what you can do. So one of the first things will be shutting down the exchanges or limiting who can do it. I mean, New York did the bit license years ago, and it just made New York not the center. And I mean, in many ways, Miami is more of a center for Bitcoin and blockchain than New York, against all odds. But it happened because BitLicense, the byproduct of that is everybody just goes somewhere else.
Well, I was also going to say the reality of a decentralized exchange is really nothing more than a front end, and you know, a government can come down and shut down the website that is the front end, but everything is just happening through a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. So realistically, even if you shut down the front end, if you have tech-savvy people, you can never actually stop that transfer.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to kind of like bring up, because again, I don't want that to be coming from me from like a biased opinion. But it sounds like you.
No, I think best case scenario, the governments would be playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah, exactly, because I mean, it's decentralized. So
Yeah, and that's where they lose.
No.
It takes too much effort to play
You can
whack-a-mole.
shut down the on-ramp, but you can't shut down the system
Yeah.
itself.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, just in general, like, if that happens, you know, aside from decentralized exchanges, do you think it's still going to be peer-to-peer, or people still going to be interacting with each other with currency, or is it just going to be like an underground kind of currency?
I think people are starting to wake up, so I don't think it's going to be that underground for that much longer. And it isn't even.
I mean,
People wake up real quick. Stay woke.
Yeah, I mean, especially Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's been called a commodity by the CFTC like years ago.
You know what I mean.
It's accepted socially.
We got a question in the back there from Mike. Hi, Mike.
How do you balance the brand of your conference with also the temptation to just take money from, you know, any sponsor, any speaker? You know, there's so much money in scams being thrown around in the crypto world that it's probably hard from where you are. No to some people, yes to others.
Yo, we have done an okay job at that. We've been okay. We haven't been great because there's been plenty of sponsors that have come to our events that have then gone on to do some pretty shady stuff. What is good is we have a great team that can also vet the companies that are coming through. And so when somebody says we want to sponsor, it doesn't matter how much it is. It says, what are your goals and how can we help you achieve those goals? And we do the proper due diligence on these companies, but things fall through the cracks. There have been some companies that have gone on to do some not good things. I mean, there are, but it is tricky because also as a company, you got to look at profits and you got to look at the bottom line. But and so you want to take money from as many people as possible, but you have a responsibility to showcase products that have value, and though we don't take a position, we generally remain pretty agnostic towards which companies. We don't say, well, this blockchain is better, so we're only going to show things that are based off of that. But and our approaches can't just be sunlight is the best disinfectant, because something should just never be shown on stage. But it is a constant sort of, let's look at the companies, let's talk to people we know that might be involved in the company, let's look at their, I mean, and what we're starting to do is saying, do you have any women on your board? Do you have any women co-founders? And if you don't, what's the problem? What's the problem with the company? And maybe we shouldn't take you as a sponsor. I mean, there is a responsibility that we have making an event. And I hope, and I think my team agrees with me, we try to maintain balance in between trying to turn a profit and show the right companies. And if it means we lose out on 40, 50% of the upside, I think it's worth it, and we owe it to the people coming to the event to give them give them the right information during the event. But you're happy to sponsor next conference. And you heard it here tonight first. We're going to have Mike on stage in 3 months talking about the company. We'll get you. Wait, you have a printer here? Perfect. We're good. We're good. You did?
They can't launch because attorneys have told them that they might be considered an asset class.
I think this is a pretty specific question, but there is a person named Drew Hinkes who I will give you his contact. He would love to hear from you. But
We have some NFTs for 15 minutes of Drew's free time.
yeah. If you ever, no, but it is a tricky thing. To test an idea, you just make a type form, or you get some people to talk about it. You come over here, anybody you talk to that you have a beer with, you ask them what they think about the event, about the concept. But launching something and whether or not, but also, America is kind of a shit place to launch a company. With all due respect, it's just very, very difficult because there's so many people in so many states, and everyone has their own. I mean, with a bit license in New York, you're already gone from doing something in New York. And I think if more and more states adopt some of these things, it's just a tricky place to do a business. But
It's my industry, and I kind of have to do it because 42% of the global market of what I'm working on in the art market is here. So it kind of would be like shooting myself in the foot.
yeah,
Sell a tokenized asset.
Drew is an expert in art as well. Yeah, I'll give you his contact. Yeah, Drew will help you out. He's based in Miami. Are you based in Miami?
Yeah, I just moved here. I met you at Consensus last year. Carrie.
I was really drunk during Consensus. I mean, it's a hard event not to be drunk at.
Yeah, I just wanted to see your opinion on who do you think is like leading the industry right now? Like in the past, like Justin Sun or Vitaly.
I'm not super convinced Justin is leading the industry as much as he's making big waves. And in some ways, making big waves is leading an industry. It's being controversial to be controversial. There's value there because it's sort of, if he's the one that shot first, you sort of know where the sniper is. And so he does some crazy stuff, and then you see, okay, well, this is the sort of way we need to do it, kind of. So you learn a lot from other people. But I got nothing but praise for CZ at Binance, who is just everything. They launch on time. They don't go down. They have great people. These are great people. And the stuff going on with Ethereum, launching newer and newer things. And Vitalik being self-aware enough to say that some things are actually quite bad that they're launching, or that he doesn't agree with himself. But there's so many pioneers, and it doesn't need to be a huge company to be innovative. Some of the things that are happening in basements or accelerators or incubators or places like this is in many ways more impressive than things that are done in big companies. Also, I'm not a leader in knowing stuff, but I'm happy to field questions. You're goddamn right.
Do you think, what's your opinion about like privacy coins like Monero, Zcash, Dash? Do you think that's ever going to take off, or is it always going to be?
I mean, Ricardo at Monero is a genius and a fantastic person and innovator, and everybody working on the Monero project is really, really capable. Zcoin as well, in Dash with Ryan Taylor and those guys, they are doing great things. And they have a very dedicated cult-like following.
Do you think it's important, for example, like let's just say Bitcoin is projected to stay, everyone's on a public blockchain. I make business with you, and I'm doing a supply chain, I'm sending products to you on the public blockchain. Do you think that me showing this to the rest of the world would be a great idea, or should it be where like, okay, the public chain, and then I do a...
I mean, with these different chains, it's tricky. To give you an example, I worked on a project with Nike for a while. And they wanted to build a blockchain product, but there wasn't enough software to do what they wanted to do. What they wanted to do is quite complicated, which is You walk into a store, not a Nike store, but like a Foot Locker store in a main shopping street, and you want a size 10 pair of Air Force Ones, but the store doesn't have it. So what they want to do is basically make a list where you say, could I get size 10? They say, we don't have it, but we're going to get it from the other store. And within 5 minutes, somebody from the back of house there will bring the shoes over here. But to do that, you sort of need a really complicated blockchain, which says it notifies the other store that they need that pair. It pings their blockchain of database which pairs they have and if they have enough of the sizes. Then somebody from the back house there checks it out on a blockchain and says, it's leaving this place. And when it leaves there, they sort of settle on the price that they need to get for that pair, send it over to us, it's scanned when it comes in, and it's sold in the other place. And it's all settled on a blockchain instantaneously, and you get your pair of shoes. So it happens in the background, and it's really complicated. But what you also don't want to happen is every store to know how much inventory there are in other stores. And so, in a way, this permissioned private stuff is necessary when you don't want to publicize internal information. And so there's value and not a lot of value to certain things. But it really depends on the use case of what you're trying to do. When it comes with privacy coins, if you're going to sell kiddie porn, just don't do that. And anyways, it can be de-anonymized pretty quickly. But when you, I mean, if you need a privacy coin to,
I just want to emphasize on that because there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of opposition saying that, well, privacy coins are bad because you're trying to hide. It's just like it's not necessarily.
I mean, it's really hard, but people do really bad things. I worked like 5 years ago. I was working with the police in the Netherlands, trying to show them how the Silk Net and the Silk Road works, and the dark net and the Silk Road works. I opened up a laptop in there. I got their approval, and I bought the passport online with the police to show them how you can do something with Bitcoin, and it blew their fucking minds. But their priority was we can only investigate things that would result in minimum 6 months prison because they have so much more that they need to be worried about before they can start worrying about everything. Privacy, when it becomes like 2 weeks ago, they did this big pedophile ring, and it was a darknet website where they took it down. That was a huge sting operation, and they spent enough time on it. Privacy coins, they were using Bitcoin as well, but privacy coins itself have ways to de-anonymize. I mean, don't underestimate how good the developers are within government organizations like the FBI.
Well, I think one of the things that people overlook a lot is that realistically, like Zcash, Monero, it's not just about the currencies themselves with the development that happens with the technology within. I mean, Zcash, Snarks, and Ring-CT are utilized across multiple other blockchains to give those trustless peer-to-peer transactions, but you don't actually have to transact with that privacy coin. So one of the biggest things I see with privacy coins going forward is not the coins themselves, but the back-end technologies that are then integrated into other chains.
Yeah. I think that privacy coins offer value and also offer great risks. There's opportunity and risk.
But I think it's important as well because as a business, I mean, I'm not a business owner, but if I had my own business, I wouldn't want to publicize everything.
No, everybody has a right to privacy, that's for sure.
Correct, exactly.
And not because you have something to hide, just because you have a human right to privacy.
That is part of our human rights.
What do you think about AI predictions of the price of Bitcoin? I saw an article recently that predicted the fall from 14K to 8K, and drew some lines, maybe even went back in time and predicted how it would go. It looked like a pretty parallel line.
I mean, for all of those ones that predict it well, there's thousands that predict it really not well. Mike, one of the guys that were developing Bitcoin a while ago, named Mike, who made a famous post on 99 Bitcoins, I forget his last name. Mike Mike Hearn. He wrote he was one of the developers with Bitcoin, and we sat together in Geneva a while ago, like also 5-6 years ago. And he gave me the best explanation of the Bitcoin price that I ever heard. I said the price does what it does. Nobody knows. There's no real explanation to it. There is some hype, and there are some catalysts which make people buy it more. And when there's global uncertainty and unrest, then the price goes up. But AI and prediction markets, some are better, some are worse, but there are many that get it wrong. And there's too many black swan events that screw with the price of Bitcoin, and it could drop $1,000 in a day based on nothing. Just somebody gets scared, China bans Bitcoin, and then price drops. But in the high frequency trading of crypto and the algorithmic trading, there's probably a lot more value there, and there are companies that are doing high frequency trading with Bitcoin and making a lot of money. Also losing a lot of money, but there are both, right? That's sort of, if you can trade it well or can understand the small ticks rather than going back in time, because it's more difficult to do technical analysis on Bitcoin because it hasn't been around that long, and it just does weird stuff all the time. I mean, so, but these guys, they have, a lot of the guys that are working in this trading, it's you got to be focused 24/7, and you got to be on it, and things move so quickly. That's not sustainable. 24-hour markets are hard.
Do you think the next bull run is going to be done like on a grassroots sense, or like Wall Street comes?
I don't know what the next bull run is. There's so, like, if you read the news, you would think the next bull run is happening tomorrow because there's going to be an impeachment, there are Hong Kong riots, and there's riots in Barcelona, and there's riots in Paris for the last year. I mean, something's got to happen to make people think, you know what, maybe we shouldn't put our money in the government. So you would think that there would be a big enough catalyst, but you still have the built-in sensitivity and worry of 2017, 2018, where the price went crazy and then people lost a lot of money. So one of these has to be bigger than the other to sort of incentivize or kick off that bull run. I mean, people say that the institutional money is coming and there's going to be a ton of, maybe, but that's not big enough of incentive. When people are trying to get their money out of Hong Kong, you know, that could be something big enough to start moving things. And if the Bitcoin price is moving 15, 20% because people are getting money out of things, then people start gambling with their money and think, maybe I'll cash the next 10%. And then other people gamble with it, and then the last people lose a lot of money. So it's unclear what will happen. I don't know. Talk to Mike, he knows.
I think people concentrate on the price during bull run way too much. The reality is, if you look at where we're at right now in terms of comparison to 3 years ago, yes, we're in a low period. We're not screaming, but the amount, the volume and liquidity has built significantly. So even though the price isn't moving, it's just building more and more.
Good things happen when the price is down. When the price was down between 2015 and 2016, everybody's building infrastructure projects. And then when things start moving, people are able to capture that value that's being created. And like from March 2018 till, let's say, 2020, people are working on great products. And when something happens, they'll be able to cast a wider net and catch that. So when the market is down, people have their heads down and working all day.
There's a pretty cool analysis called stock to flow. I don't know if any guys heard of this, but there's this guy, B9, he's a Twitter guy, pretty sharp Wall Street guy. And it's an analysis that they use the gold and silver, and they basically plotted historical Bitcoin over it.
And it maps well.
Pretty insanely accurate today. I mean, doesn't mean it's going to be accurate in the future, but it's worth taking a look at. So if you're interested in that, it's stock to flow. Just look it up. There's plenty of guys doing it now. What is it, stock to flow? Stock to flow. It's a way of evaluating a commodity based on its usage and how much they're
Yeah.
So, and as the happenings happen, it's it's actually in that analysis, and this is not financial advice. Do not
And
take
if you
my
sign up now, you get a free set of steak knives.
do not take my financial advice. But it's very interesting how they've actually gone back and regressed it both ways, done other analysis on it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, but these are interesting. What you just said as well, that you go through these regression analysis and you see how it maps. Sometimes very valuable, sometimes tricky, and also who knows what happens.
So man, if that thing's right, holy crap, you should be buying Bitcoin as we eating right now.
Question?
So given your background, given that you get to collaborate with many of the innovators in the space, what contribution do you want blockchain and crypto to make to society? And really, where do you see the value creation occurring within the next 5 years?
I think that blockchain as an innovative idea has the potential to make the world a better place in democratizing who has money and who has access to funds. And I don't know. I don't know. I can give you a canned bullshit answer, but I just don't know. You don't know because
Value creation, do you have any opinion on where the value creation will come from?
I hope it's not that a couple guys in crypto make all the money. And I hope people that are making good companies have enough sense to distribute or work on better projects that help enable a broad community to get involved. And I'm like a lot of what Andrew Yang has written about universal basic income and where the world is headed with machines and robotics taking over what people are doing. Like the world is going to change dramatically. My wife is expecting a baby, and I don't know what the hell to do because what sort of world is this kid going to live in? Because does she need university, or does she need to have universal basic income and become an artist, or what sort of world are we going into? If there is universal basic income, then what do we do? And what is the responsibility of the people that have built the companies that own the robots and the manufacturing and the engineering of these robots to take over? I don't know what the future looks like, and the value creation, I guess, should be much more distributed. You go in any country that has a lot of people, there's a lot of homeless, and if there's value creation, it should be shared.
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing
It's
to slap a single thing on blockchain. It's like,
I-
what value did the internet create?
I think yeah, you just there's responsibility. I think responsibility in a community is important.
Have you seen that responsibility?
Yeah, there are, I mean, it's imperative for each one of us to feel some responsibility and to have that as part of their corporate identity or as their personal identity to, if you're doing something well, share it, or share your idea, or engage with more people, or spread the word a bit more. And if the company grows and you're making a lot of money, help contribute to social projects and help improve the world rather than buying yachts and hanging out with Epstein. Like there.
We're taking 2 more questions.
Do you think,
Sorry, right here.
being on stage when Metallica, you mentioned that, and you said Fluffy Pony, what do you think really is the driving factor from ecosystem development of technology, not just the technology itself?
It takes certain really smart people to have a combination of autism and great community to make things. And it's sort of a joke with this autism, but it is super, super intelligent people that are able to come up with an idea, execute it by themselves, and do the heavy lifting by themselves, and then engage with other people that can see their vision and build out a product together. So it's one, having a great vision and working on it yourself, and no ego, just building something because it's the right thing to do, and then engaging with other people to see the same vision and recognize and respect their opinions to make it better and better. You see a lot of companies fail when the CEO is not appropriate to run the company because they are not inclusive or they're not having more and more people engaged. It's really having an amazing idea, engaging with people, and being flexible enough. Rigidity is not the answer. Rigidity is the enemy. And one more question from Erica. Thank you so much for asking a question.
You know, I was going to ask you a question. So my question is,
Tonight,
We're giving away 2, right?
giving away 2 tickets.
So I don't think we got everybody who came here checked in, right?
Right.
So we're gonna pick 2 tickets out of all of the emails and the numbers that checked in. So I hope you didn't give us a fake address, because I know I probably would if I got asked to check in.
I totally did.
But we're gonna give away 2 tickets, so keep an eye out on your email from us. My last question for you, Mo, is why did you choose Miami as the place for the first conference?
It's Enrique. Miami is one of these places in my mind which is very romantic. It's the sort of middle ground between North and South America, and it's a hub, and there's a big, very inefficient airport, but it's a very big airport.
But now they have an ATM machine, a Bitcoin ATM.
They have a Bitcoin ATM in the airport. And it's so cool to see what happens in Miami, because there is no real reason to be in Miami. It could have been in Los Angeles, it could have been in New York, but it is in Miami. And besides for being really nice in January and throughout the year, in my mind, it's this. We were in an Uber over here. The guy was from Dominican Republic. He moved there 4 years ago. We're in the Lindsay's from London. Joshua's from Australia. Amy's from Miami, or from Pennsylvania. I mean, everybody's same thing. But you're around, no matter where you go, whichever people you interact with, go to a bar, like the bar we're going to afterwards, which is called Lost Boy. Whoever's working there has got an amazing story. And I live in Northwestern Europe, and they don't have that many great stories. They just been there for 5,000 years. And they're not nobody came here to start a new life. Like, if you think of LA as a place where artists go to begin their lives as actresses or actors and artists to start creating things, Miami is the sort of place where you go to create a better life for you and your family. And if blockchain is going to accomplish some of that stuff, be around people that want to make a better life for you and your family in this place. Miami is the hub for, Miami is the American dream.
Yep. So Miami, beaches, babes, and Bitcoin.
Thank you.
Beaches. No, beaches. Thanks, you guys, for coming out. Hang around for a while, then we'll. Wait, you have them now? You have them? Oh, okay. Did you hear beaches or bitches?
I heard beaches, but it's normally
We heard the Robson and Encrypt.
You want to choose it now?
We already chose it.